Hello, I'm General Waffles with Breakfast Brigade. Let's talk about Kharazim. Kharazim is the newest support added to the game, and he's a melee support. I really like Kharazim. He's become one of my favorite supports because you can actually build him to be very aggressive if you choose to, and you can play him very aggressively. Most supports in the game currently are not very aggressive. You can't really be aggressive with them. You know, there's been times where Uther has been able to kind of walk into team fights, and Tyrande has a good amount of damage, but besides that, you can't really take an aggressive option with playing support. You're kind of stuck to healing people and controlling the field. Now, Kharazim doesn't really bring the crowd control utility, doesn't have any silences or roots or hard crowd control. But what he does have is a lot of mobility and a good amount of healing, as well as being able to put out a lot of damage. As always, let's start with his base stats. His health starts at 850, mana 500. His Q can dash to an enemy or an ally. If you dash to an enemy, you will hit them immediately with an auto attack. If you accidentally hold down the key too long, when you're casting ability, you will cast both charges on whatever you go for. His W, Breath of Heaven, is an AoE heal. It'll heal you for 130, as well as giving a 10% move speed to everyone hit by the heal for 3 seconds. The heal is static to your person, so you need to move your body to cast the ability in different areas. His Deadly Reach doubles his attack speed, that's his E, for 2 seconds, making him hit 4 hits a second. His normal attack speed being 2 hits a second. However, his attack damage is only 25 damage. It's not very high. Fairly balanced around that. His passive is dependent on what you choose. You actually choose it at level 1. You can choose Transcendence, Iron Fist, or Insight, and they all do mana, damage, or healing. Most of the time you're going to want to take the Transcendence for the healing because it's a more supportive ability for your team, and in early trades you'll be able to out-trade people. Iron Fist can be good if you want to try to do a damage build, and Insight, it's not really necessary. The more you play the character, the more you can learn how to conserve his mana, and mana does not become that much of an issue. Now once you hit level 20, his health goes up to 4,270, not bad. Mana 690, pretty standard. Now his Q is an interesting ability. I always recommend picking up Wave 100 Fist at level 7, and instead of doing an auto attack, you do a flurry of attacks. It takes a little bit of time, and you can cancel it by walking away. But if you stick with them, then it's a lot of damage. In fact, if you pick up Wave 100 Fists as well as Blinding Speed, giving you another dash, as well as Epiphany, as I am going to be doing in this video, which I think is the best talent choices, the branching path that he can take. You will have 5 dashes effectively. Each dash will be able to do 540 damage to an enemy, with the total damage being 2,700. That's really good. It's really all-in approach if you want to go in on somebody, but you always have the flexibility to not do that. And Wave 100 Fists is a really good way to just get damage on the field and pressure people out. As well as you can still use the dash to come back to your team. Echo of Heaven is another really good choice because it gives you more heals. And Cleanse may be situationally necessary against something like a Murky. His W moves up to 548 healing with the same move, speed bonus. His Deadly Reach is the exact same, just doubles your attack speed, never gets any better. I wouldn't recommend Taloning for it because it's just not effective, usually. I did a build video earlier for damage where I did, but you can see in that video it's not very useful most of the time, and you don't normally get off all your attacks that you need to. Your attack damage is up to 139. It's fairly respectable considering that you do have a 2 attack per second attack speed. Your trait will now be healing for 160 health every time you hit that third auto attack, which should be happening 1.5 seconds normally, or if you have Deadly Reach, every 3/4 of a second. 0.75. Now, I said before, Kharazim, he's an aggro support. Like, if you ever played League of Legends, Sonya was kind of aggro support. Like, she had defensive capabilities to bring to a team, and she had a lot of crowd control, but she had a lot of damage. And that's kind of what you would do. You would try to build that damage up to just help your team. And Kharazim, by taking away 100 Fizz, you bring another option, you bring another threat. You don't have to use that threat or rely on it, but you have it there for when your team needs it. You know, there's an Azebo, you can pressure him out really well. And it's just a good way to help finish off people because you can stick to them very well. More burst damage is always good for a team. Now, Kharazim, because he's melee and because his healing ability is static to him and an AoE, he really fits into melee team comps, very heavy melee team comps, where you want people. Maybe a double warrior, double support team comp would be really strong with him. Also, other supports work really well with him because he does bring a lot of damage to help mitigate the double support. Especially ones with AoE healing, just like Malfurion or Brightwing. Both of them pack a lot of AoE heals themselves and go really well with your AoE heals. Even though your heals don't add up to a lot, such as like Uther's burst heal, it will still, it'll equal out. It'll equal out in the end with both of you. And then you can both focus. It's really hard to take down a team like that, even with burst damage. That's why you have the heavy comp. Now Kharazim, he may not have a lot of utility to bring to the fight. He may not be able to actually, crowd control people or make sure people are going to die, make sure people aren't going to kill your team. The only way you can make sure someone doesn't kill your team is by getting in their way and healing your team and giving them some move speed. Especially with the trait Quicksilver at 13, you can help you and your team get out of a lot of situations they normally could have, and can bring a lot of mobility to teammates that normally wouldn't have mobility. Something like Jim Raynor doesn't have a lot of mobility by himself, but when you hit him with your Quicksilver, he gains 30% more move speed, and you can do this multiple times. Disengaging against any team with Kharazim is a lot easier. It gets a lot easier, especially when you can pick up Soothing Breeze to remove silences, blinds, slows, and roots. This makes him really strong against Jaina, especially. Jaina normally can chase people down to the ends of the earth, can hold down teams and make sure that running away from a lost team fight is almost impossible. But being able to remove that slow from your entire team is really strong. It helps you go forward more and actually be able to get to Jaina. It helps you run away. Because he gives a lot of move speed, Illidan is also another really good person. You help Illidan stick to targets a lot better. Gazlo is another person I would say is very synergistic with Kharazim. In kind of a weird way. His 7-sided strike can be used to combo with the Grabo Bomb combo to help pump out just a little bit of extra damage if necessary. But more importantly, any sort of player-made structure or player-made minion, Kharazim can jump to it. So, as Gazlo lays out turrets, these are things that you can jump to if you need to and make more escapes possible, be able to set up your plan. As Kharazim, you basically always want to have a plan to what you want to be doing. You don't want to just go in with no plan and just die. That's what's going to happen. Like, you need to look at the minion lanes, because you can jump to any minion that comes up, so you need to make sure that there's going to be something to jump to before you engage. Make sure you have dashes to get away unless you're sure you're going to kill your opponent. You really got to think about your decisions before you make them. Another problem thing that Kharazim has is I do believe that his Divine Palm is the much better ultimate in really any sort of team comp, any sort of skill level. I think it's the best talent. However, when you're playing with a bunch of pugs in Quick Match or in Hero League, what have you, Sometimes people don't pay attention to when you put invincibility on them and they will kind of run away. Or they will do things to extend their life. Like pop a bunch of heals on them or what have you. A big problem is just them running away. Because normally people, especially in quick match, know to rely on themselves more than to rely on their teammates in a lot of situations. So they want to make sure that they're going to survive, and then usually they make a plan to escape. Or a plan to survive. Like Illidan's will pop their healing and their high mobility and their evasion, and it makes them very hard to kill, so it's very hard to actually land your Divine Palm on a lot of people like this. A lot of times I find myself using it on myself after I jump in haphazardly to a team to kind of bait out a lot of damage, and then by the time the damage is guaranteed to be done to me, I already know that I can pop the heal on myself. So there's always that to fall back on. But just having another life-saving ultimate. Kharazim, there's very few people that actually like mess up what Kharazim's trying to do. But if there's any people that will just kind of mess up what you're trying to do on your team, it'd be Sergeant Hammer, because normally you want to make sure your heals are getting off on your team, and Sergeant Hammer normally sits way, way in the back. It's good if you want to run away, and it's going to be like an always there kind of thing. But a lot of times, your team's going to be too strung out, too split up with a Sergeant Hammer to actually get your heals off that you need. Rhaegar is another problem. If sometimes you'll both ult the same person, and then his ult completely cancels yours, his ancestral healing, and then your Divine Palm doesn't go off, and everyone looks silly. Murky, it's kind of hard to tell when Murky's going to die. The enemy team already doesn't really want to kill Murky, because he will return. So when they see that Divine Palm on him, it's just more incentive to not attack him already. Then a lot of Murkies pack bubble heal, and they save their bubbles, and they normally know what they're doing. You should always expect that a team knows what they're going to be doing with their character, and Murkies usually know how to survive really well in team fights in the later stage of the game. So, besides, you don't really want to bring back Murky with your ult, though you can help him kind of stick to targets a bit better. Now, when you're in Hero League and you're trying to figure out if Kharazim's the support that your team needs, you should definitely consider his matchups and his maps. There's a lot of maps and matchups he's just not very strong at. Like Jim Raynor is a hero. In the early game, Jim Raynor just completely destroys everything that Kharazim is trying to do, and you can't out-heal his damage. It's kind of a nightmare. In the late game, his healing usually gets past your burst that you can do. Your burst isn't very high, you're still a support. And he can knock you away, knock you around, and being knocked around is already annoying, because normally you always want to be moving in a logical path. You only have so many... that's your real advantage that you have in most games, in most team fights, is that you have mobility where others wouldn't. And when that gets messed up, it's a big problem. Kerrigan, she's a problem because not only is she difficult to bring down, it's difficult to stop her from doing what she wants to, and she has way more than enough burst to kill you. You're not the most tanky thing in the world. You get most of your tankiness from fighting, and when someone can stun you, you lose your ability to sustain. Leoric, trying to kill Leoric is impossibly hard as Kharazim, especially by herself. You can't really do anything about him. There's very few characters that can really do anything about Leoric, and a lot of times you'll just end up giving him more health. Muradin, he packs stuns that keeps you from healing and attacking and moving, but more importantly, it's really easy for him to take down your attack speed, and your attack speed is your healing. That being said, imposing presence in general is really good against Kharazim because it just neuters his passive. Yeah, he doesn't have much besides his attack speed. And then of course stealth assassins. Kharazim doesn't have a way to reveal stealth assassins by himself. Even if you pick up the ability Foresight, where your dash will reveal an area, you still have to have something to dash to, as you can't dash to yourself. So Nova and Zeratul, very obnoxious. Nova's a bit better because once she reveals, you can do a lot of damage to her and sometimes kill her by yourself. Zeratul can usually get away with his links. Now, you do have some good matchups though, like Nazebo. These are all for the same reason. Nazebo, Kel'Thas, Vala, Tyrande, and Falstad are all squishy backline heroes with poor escape mechanisms. Vala has her roll and Falstad has his barrel roll. But other than that, they can't really get away from you very well. They can't knock you away. And in the late game, you'll just be able to pressure them out of fights. Chen is also fairly good because Chen tends to stand still, and though you're not really accomplishing much by attacking Chen, sometimes if you're low, just attacking a shielded Chen can give your team the healing that they need if you can't get into a fight. Asmodon, for a similar reason, he's a fairly stationary hero, so being able to stick to him is really good, and in the early game, you can sort of out-sustain his E, and make him waste a lot of his mana on you if he chooses to. And with someone like Abathur, then suddenly the game switches. Abathur, amazing synergy with Kharazim, because Kharazim can heal for so much, and he's so sticky that Abathur gets a lot of value out of him. And he's always where the action is, if he chooses to. Now, I mentioned maps. Kharazim, he doesn't have AoE, he doesn't really have the ability to push hard. He's also not very good in 1v1 situations, or getting strung out. He really is excelling when the entire team is together and fighting, rather than the entire team is together and fighting rather than when they're split and ganking. He's not great at that. So the plant map and the Cursed Hollow, both of these are fairly poor simply because they're large maps. People tend to split up a little bit, and kind of trying to coordinate a team fight is hard, and keeping your team together is difficult. The Infernal Shrines have the reason that the objective is so hard for you to do. Kharazim's good at it for the fact that your team is always going to be together, but it's kind of difficult to do the objective with him, and there's other choices that are better, like Malfurion. He is good at some maps. Surprisingly, he's good at the Spider map, because it's such a small map that he can usually bounce around really fast and can be with the team a lot. It's pretty easy to get around, though he's really poor at pushing, so there is that to keep in mind. The Haunted Mines is good in the sense that your team is going to be together a lot. He doesn't bring a lot of pushing to the team, and again, Malfurion probably be better to pick, but still, it's something. Blackheart's Bay, he's okay. He can take camps really well if you pick up Transcendence as passive, and he can solo things like the Siege camp really early on. He does it really slowly, but it's really sustained. That's kind of where he comes from. So you can kind of roam around the map and do that, and then once team fights happen, each of the team will group. Sky Temple, teams group up a lot. It's very small quarters, so you can actually bounce around and make sure you're healing most of your team most of the time. The Dragon Shower map, that map can be good. This map is typically favors heroes that are really, really good at catching people out and being away from their team. However, if you choose to take him on this map, you can consider picking up 7-Side Strike, because 7-Side Strike can surprise people to lock into what seems like a winning fight, and then suddenly you can flip it on. More advanced players may be wise to that sort of thing, but it's something that you can definitely think about. Kharazim, I think is in a good place. Like a lot of heroes when they first come out, a lot of characters in MOBAs will typically have something overpowered about them. It's kind of like Blizzard does want you to buy it, so usually the character a little bit more powerful than they should be. Like Leoric and Thrall are really good examples. Leoric's still really powerful. But Kharazim, he seems to be really balanced. He has a really solid kit, and he's really easy to pick up and play, but he's really difficult to master and know where and when you should be. And I really love him for that. I love the jack-of-all-trades characters, and that's exactly what he is. No matter where he needs to be or what he needs to be doing, there's a way for him to build for it, and there's a way for him to get out of that situation. With his Divine Palm, he's incredibly hard to take down and brings a lot of healing to a team fight. Movement speed is huge. A lot of people have said that movement speed is the most overpowered thing in MOBAs, simply because it gives you such a mobility advantage that's important in team fights. And Kharazim does just that, especially with the ability to remove roots and slows. It can be really easy to build a team that focuses on just running into the team, and you don't have a way to stop them. With Quicksilver, making sure that your teammates can get out is a breeze. Overall, a solid character. Nothing overpowered, but nothing underpowered. He's exactly where he needs to be, and I would consider picking him up and playing him. He's a lot of fun. You know, he's one of those characters where you can really sit down and have a lot of fun learning, and not everything is apparent right away. And there are a lot of different ways you can take it. You know, and it's sometimes fun having a hero that has more than one build that doesn't do just one thing. That's going to be the video. I'm just going to look up the stats of this game that was playing in the background and go over the talent choices of what I believe is the most viable build. Though I do believe he has many viable builds. And I put up a few of those already. Alright. And I have gotten a level 9 with him. Anyway, really good damage, really good healing, top healing. I mean, you can just see how much I can put out without building for healing, specifically. Transcendence, really good in the early game, not so much in the late game. Healing Ward, I think it's really good. This one's dependent. Wave 100 Fists, really good for pressuring people. The Echo is the second choice, I would say. Cleanse is the situational choice. Divine Palm, really good. 7-side Strike can be really good if you have a secondary support. Quicksilver, I mean, more mobility is better, more mobility for everyone. Blinding Speed gives you more dashes. You already invested heavily in your dash. And then Epiphany for more dashes and more mana. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. Till next time.